Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Rye-Town Park Commission meeting of October 16th, 2018. Apologize for the lateness of the start. We had other earlier business to attend to. Please rise, and I'm going to ask Mark Casada to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Debbie, roll call, please.
Commissioner Falanka?
Here.
Commissioner Rosenberg?
Here.
Commissioner Cohn?
Here.
Commissioner Hurd?
Here.
Commissioner Bassella-Nitro will not be able to attend, and President Zuckerman.
Here. First item is adoption of minutes from August 21 of 2018. If there are no additions or corrections, may I have a motion and a second?
Make a motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Non-agenda items?
2 seconds.
Jamie?
If it's in the report, you can cut me off. Jamie Jensen, 588 Forest. A lot of people are asking about the plan for the lawn. So the crabgrass is sort of taken over. There's no aeration going on. There was no seeding that happened. So folks are worried that we didn't do what we needed to do this fall, and we're going to end up with mud in March.
Thank you, Jamie. We will attend to your comments and check on it with the people who are supposed to maintain the lawn. Okay? Thank you. And now we have a presentation honoring Mark Casada for his more than 40 years of service as our lifeguard captain. And I see his lifeguard staff is here, his senior staff. So Mark, why don't you come up? They're very loyal. I see that.
I would add they clean up very well.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is the first time I've ever seen Mark dressed other than his lifeguard stuff, with his hat and everything else. Guys, why don't you stand nearby too? Now we have a microphone. The Rye-Town Park Commission recognizes the great accomplishments and successes of Mark Casada for serving Rye-Town Park as lifeguard captain for more than 40 years. I think it's closer to 45, isn't it?
I stopped counting, but
Okay.
1976 was the year I was asked to be in charge.
The commission acknowledges that for all of that time, Mark has been employed at Rye-Town Park, Oakland Beach, and worked his way to lifeguard captain and continues to serve with distinction and dignity, and recognizes that Mark has served in heroic fashion, including saving many lives from drowning and other life-threatening emergencies. He's a great teacher. He's taught his staff and younger members, and I can attest to that because we have a great, great lifeguard staff. And whereas Rye-Town Park Commission acknowledges Mark Casada for keeping a well-maintained and safe beach environment for all staff and for the public, and recognizes the wonderful family support shown by Mark to his wife and children, that the Rye-Town Park Commission declares Tuesday, October 16th, 2018 as Mark Casada and Family Day within the town of Rye, and I think the city of Rye as well.
Well,
Thank you so much. Guys, introduce yourselves. This is our senior staff. I know, you're all senior staff.
This gentleman, I started with John in 1975. In 1976, I have a picture. If one of you guys can get the pictures, I want to show everybody a couple of these old pictures I found. And I worked for the former captain. His name was Gild Fettridge, and he was largely responsible for training me. And boy, was he strict, but he knew how to have fun too. And if you see these two pictures, they're actually 3 lifeguard captains in here. And 2 of them are still alive. The old gentleman, if you look at the black and white one, and you look at the fellow on the right, that is none other than Dick Papalardo.
Coach.
That's the colonel, known as Coach. And he was the captain largely in the late 50s and in the 60s. And believe it or not, he's still alive and well, and he still has a lot to say. He stops down and he sees us once in a while. And the little fellow in the cap who was just retiring that you see over here in the checkered shorts, I believe his name was Al Gazzilli.
Al Gazziglia.
Gazziglia, thank you. And he was the
Better known
captain.
as Bugazzi.
Gazziglia,
He taught Fritz how to swim.
yeah.
I know, I remember him.
And
very
he
well.
was the captain before Dick Papalardo. So he was planning to retire. I know he used to go to Florida in the wintertime. Well, anyway, Coach was a Korean War vet, and he still served in the Army Reserves. So he had a big influence on me. But he yielded the captain position to this fellow Guy Fetrich, who also was a Korean War vet. And what a guy this was. He was in such great shape, this guy. And he was sort of an inspiration for me. I was never planning on staying. Originally, I was going to pursue another profession. And what happened was that year, 1976, I decided that I was going to pursue an advanced degree at Manhattanville in teaching. And the thought had occurred to me, well, maybe it's, make a little extra money, be a nice summer job to hold on to. Well, Giles came to me halfway through the summer, and he handed me the keys. And I didn't know that, but he wanted to give them to John.
We actually did. I fell in love with the girl, and at the time, captains couldn't really leave the first aid station, so I wanted to hold on to my hours off during the day, so I could be with her.
So he recommended me, and I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. So here I am. You're stuck with me. After
Mark,
all
could I
these
see
years.
that picture? I'd like to take a picture of that picture.
Here, I'll show you.
I know these gentlemen well.
We should put those pictures in the website, yeah.
And this is Carrie. Carrie's worked with me for years. His brother Howard is an airplane pilot, and Howard knows how I love aerial photographs. This is a view, you guys hold that,
Oh,
of
wow.
our beautiful waterfront. And I've shown this already to many, many people, and what a treasure that we have. I have people visit this beach from all over the tri-state area and even other countries. And they all say the same thing, what a gorgeous place we have.
And it is, it is.
And even though we get those hot, sticky days, this is what makes it all worth it. Every now and then you have a little storm with a rainbow,
Oh,
and there's nothing
Show the commission.
more divine and gorgeous.
Right.
that's
This.
beautiful.
I mean, it looks like something right out of heaven. Isn't that beautiful? Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And thank you for the entire staff. And you did a great job this summer. Thank you. Thank you to hold on
It
to.
was an honor.
It's been an honor to work with you.
To teach early, so.
That's when I used to go to the beach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you,
We
Mark.
have your pictures.
Oh, here, your pictures.
Mark,
Mark,
I'll definitely see the colonel and make sure I'll show him that.
And by the way, the first aid, thank you, used to be painted in stripes, white and green stripes.
Oh, yeah.
And I was the guy that got rid of them, painted it all white. When somebody came up to the first aid, they asked for ice cream. And when I told him it wasn't possible, he got very upset with me.
Make sure Debbie has those pictures, especially the aerial shots, so we can put them on the website.
Yeah, beautiful.
They're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
thanks.
Thank you. Our next item is a presentation from the auditors regarding the Rye-Town Park audited financial statement for 2017. And I guess you're going to get ready to do the 2018 pretty soon.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Oling. I'm one of the partners at PKF O'Connor Davies in the Public Sector Group. I'm here tonight with Jeff Shaver, who is the engagement partner in charge of the audit of the Rye-Town Park for the year ended December 31st, 2017. So Jeff's put together a small PowerPoint presentation to go over some of the financial highlights for the audit for the year ended December 31st, 2017. We've issued what's known as a clean or unmodified opinion on the park's finances for that year, meaning that we believe that these financial statements fairly present the financial results for the year. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Jeff to go through some of the detail with you.
Thank you, Scott. Just an agenda for today. I'll go over some of the required communications related to the audit, and then I'll just jump into a general fund summary. We'll go into some actual details of the revenues, details of the expenditures, and talk about the general fund balance.
Not too much detail.
Just a little tiny bit of detail. As I understand, you already started a little late today. Management and those charged with governance, meaning the board, is responsible for selecting and implementing appropriate accounting policies, presenting the financial statements in accordance with GAAP, maintaining effective internal controls, compliance with laws, regulations, and provisions of contracts, providing all information to the auditors, and setting the proper tone at the top. In terms of the auditor's responsibilities or our responsibilities, we're responsible to communicate any fraud or illegal acts that we noted during the audit. I'm happy to say that there is nothing to report in terms of fraud or illegal acts. There were no significant difficulties encountered during the performance of the audit. There were no uncorrected audit differences, or meaning to say any audit adjustments that we felt needed to be made were made, so everything was corrected. And we had no disagreements with management during the course of the audit. The audit deliverables consist of the financial statements, most importantly, the independent auditor's report, which Scott alluded to before, and the required communications to those charged with governance, which is what I'm going over here today. And with that, I will jump right into the general fund. This is a general fund budget to actual summary. This is a 4-column presentation. You'll see the original budget is the first column. The final budget is the second column. Actual revenues and expenditures are the third column. And the variance column is the difference between the final budget and the actual results. When the budget was adopted, it was anticipated $1,168,000 in revenues would be collected. Actual revenues collected were $1,126,000. That was less than the budget by approximately $41,000. On the expenditure side of the budget, it was anticipated $1,064,000 would be spent, and actual expenditures for the year were $1,180,000. That was $116,000 greater than the budget. And on the next slides, I will show you a little bit of a greater breakdown of what those revenues and expenditures were. When you take the revenues of $1,126,000 less the expenditures of $1,180,000, the difference is just about $54,000. That was a decrease in your fund balance. So you started the year at just about $340,000. You're finishing the year at about $286,000. Some slightly more detail on the revenues. You'll see the original budget again matches the first page, $1,168,000. You'll see the categories, your major categories: sale of permits, parking revenues budgeted at $373,000. The various gate admissions, the largest being the mid-gate, concession rent, and other income. There's nothing significant on the variance column between any one of the categories. You'll see small surpluses in some of the items, such as the parking, and then some of the gate admissions came in slightly less than budget. The total at the end of the year was an unfavorable variance of about $41,000. A little more.
Question, what
Sure.
does other include? Because that seems to be a big number.
I don't have the details in front of me. It could be miscellaneous receipts, generally miscellaneous receipts that don't fall into any of the other categories.
Other would include the corporate sponsorships that are brought in by Bill Lawyer to underwrite our concert series, the fees that were paid for walkathons, the triathlon would fall into other income.
Thank you. No, I just want to know what it represented in raw for a while. Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the expenditure side, you'll see initially the budget stood at $1,064,000. Actual expenditures were $1,180,000. You'll see the first category, personal services or salary costs, were $60,000 greater than initially budgeted, and benefits just slightly greater than initially budgeted at $3,000. And also buildings and ground repairs were greater than budget by about $43,000. The actual expenditures were $155,000 for the fiscal year. The bulk of your budget is professional service, is personal services rather. So it's paying the lifeguards as we saw, and the people manning the beach. So that's almost $700,000 or out of a $1.2 million budget. So you have, a good chunk of your budget is taken up by those personal service costs. And what it all comes down to is your fund balance. And this is a comparison, 2016 fund balance compared to 2017. There's no reserves or anything as you might have in your related municipalities. All the fund balance of the commission is unassigned, so it's to be used at the discretion of the commission. That stood at $340,000 at the end of 2016, and we currently, at the end of 2017, stand at $286,000, and that's roughly 25% of the budget at that point in time. So that's kind of the general fund highlights for the year. What I didn't put in the PowerPoint, and I'll just mention it briefly, there's a capital fund. There's various projects going on. The expenditures for the year 2017 were about $209,000. And that's funded by the contributions from the town and the city of Rye. So just to let you know what's happening there. There's nothing else. That's really all you have in the financial statements is the general fund, main operating fund, and some capital items. There's no other funds of the commission. And, it's a relatively simple operation. And I'd like to thank, all the members of the staff for helping us throughout the audit, getting this all together, and, help making it a pleasurable audit. And that's really it. That's kind of the highlights. I mean, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions from the board.
Anybody, any questions from the board? If not, we have a resolution to accept the auditor's report. And that's all it is, to accept the report and make it an official document. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion on the acceptance of the audit report as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a presentation from the Parking Solutions Committee. I'd like to, if we could, can we take the two resolutions first without objection? Basically dealing with the seawall. Resolution authorizing the president to request from the City of Rye Council a waiver of the permit fees for the seawall. Just bringing everybody up to date, I already had sent a message to the commission, but we are right now on the verge of getting all of our permits from the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, and we've been advised that FEMA has approved and obligated the funding for the seawall. It's been a long time coming. We are now moving forward to the point where we're going to need to obtain building permits from the City of Rye to actually do the construction after it goes out to bid. And because of the cost involved, the permit cost may be as much as between $20,000 and $30,000. We're asking for a waiver, at least of so much of that potential fee as might not be reimbursed by FEMA. FEMA is to reimburse 90% of the total cost of the project, which would include all the soft costs. But there still might be some a fee that is still due to the city, and we're going to ask for a waiver of that. So, are there any comments on that? Josh?
Yeah, I don't see that this resolution embodies our understanding with respect to the FEMA payment of the bulk of what would be waived. If I go to the Rye City Council, I have to go to the City Council with a clear specification of what would be waived. We're talking about, I think, a remaining 10%. The fees, I understand, are $24,000. So we're talking about a waiver of $2,400. And this resolution doesn't get there.
Well, I could, I'm happy to receive a suggestion from you as to rewording of it, or I could do that in the letter that will go to the city council, if that would be acceptable for you.
Let's amend the resolution.
I should amend the resolution.
Okay.
As to what's going, as Josh is suggesting, what is
Well,
required.
let's just,
Makes it easier again.
okay, add the above-mentioned permit fees,
What
which are not reimbursed by FEMA.
No, I think that is the wrong paragraph. That paragraph's describing what the permit fees are, up to 3% of the $1 million, right?
Okay, in the resolve clause then?
So I would put
Emily?
it, I would put it in the resolve, but I would
Okay.
add a whereas to say that
I
FEMA will
would-
be reimbursed, right?
I would take out this whereas.
Okay, yeah.
Which speaks to 3% of a $1 million cost. I spoke to our buildings department,
Mhm.
they told me it's $24,000 for the building permit fee.
Depending on what the cost would be. Depending on
Of the project.
what the project cost would be, we don't know what that would be.
Oh, they seemed to think they did.
Well,
We're not gonna know what the cost is until we go out to bid.
okay.
I mean, it may be $1 million, it may be 600,000, we don't know.
Okay,
To be determined at a later date.
what I think we need to,
Gary, you said we gotta wait until those costs are determined when you go out to bid?
Right.
yeah, I'm not gonna be able to get from the city council an open-ended waiver.
All right, I'll tell you,
So why don't you?
let's
if you
table this.
Yeah,
Let's
I was
table
gonna say,
this.
it's a little premature. but
Let's
we have to
table
wait.
this. Okay, we have it on the table that we're gonna make the request.
Yeah.
We're gonna probably go out to bid in November.
And you'll have it.
And we won't need to obtain the permits until the bids are accepted and open, which will probably be in December. So we could recraft this for the November meeting,
Yeah.
so we
That
have
makes
a
sense.
better idea.
You'll have a
Okay?
firm understanding of what who
Yeah.
the lowest
He
bidder is and
needs
what
to
the
know
fees
what
are
to
gonna
take
be.
back.
Right.
I
Good.
agree.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Resolution authorizing me to engage Evans Associates to obtain permits from the city of Rye for the seawall. Basically, we have previously engaged Evans Associates to do all the DEC permitting, which has been accomplished. We're only waiting for the final permit from DEC. And Beth Evans has filed applications and has appeared before the Planning Commission twice so far, and probably tonight, because, as I understand it, the Planning Commission of the City of Rye is to issue a resolution this evening for planning to refer to the Board of Architectural Review. And that we have received correspondence from Beth Evans as to her work. And I will be appearing with Dolph Rotfeld Associates at the Board of Architectural Review in 2 weeks to secure their approval. Hopefully, other than the engineering review, which I'm going to ask the mayor to push the building department on, we will be ready to go out to bid. So,
I just have one comment about this,
Sure.
and I've shared it already with Debbie, but I just feel, this has been a learning opportunity, I think, but I feel disappointed in the way that Beth Evans has sort of added on costs in this way. We knew she was going to complete the project for us, at least that was the hope, and she talked in her original proposal about, the work that she'd done similar to Coverly, or one of the clubs that was wiped out in the same storm that the seawall was, and I understand this has taken longer, but eventually we were gonna have to go through the permitting process, and the fact that that wasn't a cost that was explained up front, I think is frustrating, and it's a little bit misleading that we have to come back to her at, every few months, but I will support the resolution, but I just, in the future, if we're gonna be working with her, want to understand the full scope of a plan
Give us
before we
one
sign
thought,
on.
give us,
Right.
instead of piecemeal.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with you, Emily. The resolution before us, may I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Call the roll, please, Deb.
Commissioner Falenka,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosenberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd,
Yes.
President Zuckerman.
Yes. And now, presentation of our Parking Solutions Committee.
Good evening, Russ Gold and Rita. As
Reliant.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to bring you up to speed about what we've been doing. I want to start off with just by thanking the working group that consists of Lindsay Jackson, Benny Salanicho, Emily Hurd, Katie Cabersi, Debbie Reisner, and Lawrence Vargas, and of course Rita, our consultant from Label Consulting. These people put in a lot of time over a relatively short period of time. We met 3 times in the past 5 weeks, and came up with what we think is an initial response to the mandate as given to us by the commission. I'll just briefly read that. The mission for this Parking Solutions Committee is that we should work on how to maximize the designated parking areas and with the hope of minimizing the amount of parking that's on the grass, how to increase safety and efficiency regarding traffic flow, and how to use technology to streamline these operations. I'm going to assume that you've all received the current draft that Rita put together. So I don't think this is now the time to get into protracted discussions about pricing and solutions and all the things. We just want to let you know where we're at right now, because this is a work in progress, and we're going to continue to meet in hopes of getting you a more comprehensive plan of what we'd like to see happen in the next month or so. So if you just look briefly, we attacked a number of different things. We realized that if we're going to reduce the amount of parking on the lawn, we're going to have to offset or mitigate the negative impact that it's going to have on revenue, because that's a big part of our budgeting process. We figure we can do that in a number of ways. One is there may have to be some upward adjustment in the fees. We hope to incorporate parking into the permit process, so more people will buy permits, and we'll have a lot more money up front. We hope to with the use of technology and automation, we hope to reduce the amount of cash the number of cash transactions, and thus reducing the number of people. You just saw that in the audit presentation that such a large part of our budget is in personnel services, and we hope to reduce the amount of people that are currently required to run the parking operation, and that will realize some cost savings there. We also have worked diligently to this is the first part of the mandate, is to maximize the existing designated parking areas, and we've limited that now to what we call lots A, B, and C, and A is the what's currently very primitively paved right now, the main general area that you all are familiar with, and then B is the area that we refer to in the group as the gravel lot, which is between the paved lot and Forest Avenue, just adjacent to it. It's sort of a mishmash of things, and it's got some logs and things, and we're trying to figuring out how to reconfigure those two areas so that we can really maximize the number of spaces there. Right now, I think we are currently underutilizing it. There's probably too many handicap spots. Presently, it certainly far exceeds the number that's mandated by law. And just with some reconfiguration, this is where we rely on Rita to help us. We figure we can certainly net out quite a few more spots in those two areas. And then Lot C, what we're calling Area C, is the area that's just adjacent to the pond. All right, it's not the best. There were a couple of people in our group that were understandably opposed to any more parking in the park. I mean, it's a park; it's not a parking lot. We've heard that mantra, quite a few times. And but we realized that there's going to have to be some compromise here. So our initial recommendation is going to be to nobody parking north of the pond. So to be just adjacent to the pond. So nothing up on the hill anymore. And so we hope and that through further discussions and through further investigations into various forms of automation and pricing structures and reduced need for personnel and stuff, that we will be able to meet that goal of no longer parking further in the park, other than adjacent to the pond. So if you have some just basic questions about where we're going and or maybe suggestions, something that we might not have thought of, and you have some ideas that you'd like us to consider as we further our discussions, I'd love to hear from you. But again, I don't think it's the time to get into real negotiating, because we don't know our prices yet, and we don't know exactly which solutions we're going to employ. So with that, I'm just going to ask Rita if I missed anything, or if there's anything that you want to.
Just what we did is, we started off small. We were given just 3 little things to identify. So this thing that everybody worked on well and diligently, it's not the end-all solution. This doesn't have to be employed. Everything has to be done. We looked at and we said, okay, to really do the right thing in that area, this is what needs to be done. With that being said, every little part can be done separately, so you take phases and steps. It's overwhelming, the cost is very burdensome, but that doesn't mean that if you don't go along with the cost, it can't be done. So this is done in a piece. This is the proposal of what it would take to get it done right and really clean up the park. But this can be done in phases, years, and whatnot.
Let me just.
That's a good point. And I'm glad you mentioned it. That's just the idea, is to phase these improvements in over time. Thank you.
I think that when you're talking about paving the parking lot, we're talking about a lot of money, and we're talking about possibly going out to grants. So that's one thing that we want to concentrate on going forward, is getting grants, because it's not just paving the parking lot, it's making the parking lot permeable when we do it, and keeping in mind that I think a lot of the runoff by nature will have to go into the sound eventually, so we want to make it as clean as possible. And there may be grants available for the park to, in terms of stormwater management and environmentally properly moving the water to a place that impacts the environment as little as possible. I know that there's federal money available. Nita Lowy just sent out an announcement. I don't know if that would apply to us, but there are grants available.
Well, it's clear, and and to your point, Debbie made us aware of this as a possibility, and hopefully it will come to fruition. But I think what we all, and this, I think from, if Benny were here, he would echo my sentiments here. He was very clear that the time for that is now.
We agree.
It's way past time to, to reconfigure the area, repave it, and bring it up to speed so that we can, so again, we can maximize the utility for that area.
Just a couple of things. I think that everybody would be in favor of making it more permeable. The one thing you want to be careful of just is that our planning consultants have told us that the permeable asphalt is kind of useless. It doesn't really allow water to percolate into the soil as much as the hype is.
So we have to, I understand, we have to come up with the proper solution for our particular problem. But as Rita just said, to begin the process of making this much more economically viable, we don't have, the first page does not have to be necessarily paving the lot. We can implement all these new automation strategies, and we can go to a cashless thing, and we can reduce the amount of staffing. These are things that could happen while we figure out our paving problems.
The other comment that or really more of a question, it's really, I would want to understand from you guys how many spots you're thinking about eliminating and what the financial implications, because if you're saying no further parking in Lot C past the pond, how much parking are you eliminating and what are the cash implications for that? It sounds to me like you had a mandate to reduce the amount of parking there, and I don't recall this commission giving you that mandate. So I would just be, I want to be very careful.
Oh, I'm sorry. The mandate I was given it was to minimize parking on the grass.
To minimize parking, but that doesn't mean never. There are certain days when there are going to have to be parking on the grass.
Okay, so based on my observation, it's not the fact that people are parking on the grass and that we're restricting vehicles. The problem is that there's no sort of backfill to utilize spaces in lots A and B. You have the paved lot and
Agreed.
the gravel lot.
Agreed.
So on a normal given day, lot C is utilized, but the fact that lots A and B are not, based on various reasons. You have a cut through that's designated. So once they open up lot C, there's a cut through from A to C without really going through B. So you're missing that backfill, and as a result, C gets overloaded and you have people parking all over it. There's no management going on. So the only times you see an abundance of vehicles in the grass and parked all over are the holidays. You have the July 4th, you have the events. That's really the only time that happens, and from what I understand, that's not going to be eliminated. That's still going to be kept in play. So it's just managing what you currently have and not having people park all over the grass.
I agree, there has to be
contained.
better management of that.
So that's really the goal, is to keeping them contained within those areas so they're not parking under the tree, they're not damaging the roots, they're not doing that. So it really was containment more than eliminating.
Yeah.
So there is no cost negative in terms of that. So I just wanted to explain that. There is no negative unless you decide to eliminate those holidays and stop doing that. So that's the only difference.
Okay.
And
Thank
one
you.
comment, just one quick comment, is I do think that there isn't a lot of data on exactly how many spots there are because it's kind of been so haphazard in the past. So Rita did an amazing job trying to redirect flows so that we're maximizing what we do have. One other thing that we did focus on was getting people to not drive over the bridge anymore, because for me, a big concern, it was delineating where the parking areas are and where you're safe in the park. And it's always been disappointing that the duck pond is sort of like you might die if you try to walk across the bridge, because it could turn into a parking lot entrance at any moment.
And not to mention that bridge was never designed for that kind of vehicle traffic.
Rita's redirected that, and I think that this plan maximizes efficiencies, and it does take into account possible, increases in price, so that if there is a minimization in parking area, that it's accounted for.
I agree, and there's also software, and I'm sure you know of this, that allows you to look at the space where we're talking about and estimate the number of parking spaces.
Yeah, we can estimate, but then there's all sorts of obstructions, throughout that hill, whether it's a tree or a park bench.
And it's going to be, plus minus.
And so we don't really, we can't, at this time, we really can't answer how many spots, are theoretically on that hill. But a couple of the other things that were important to people on this committee, on this working group, were the overall negative environmental impact that the park has to put up with you know, because of cars parking all over the place. And there was talk about working on the possibility of having remote parking areas where we would bring where people could park in a remote area, and we could figure out how to get them into the park. So
those are good
we're
things.
looking at all sorts of opportunities, but there really it was the consensus of the group that we have to reduce the amount of cars that are actually parking on green space.
And I think that if we implement a better management plan in terms, and it's going to happen regardless. So I'm in favor of that. I just don't want to say that we're not going to allow parking there even on congested days like holiday weekends or something like that.
Understood. And we are taking all that into consideration. And again, the goal, our ultimate goal is not to negatively impact the revenue stream. That's the result of parking fees.
Yeah, what I would like to emphasize is the type of parking machine that you're going to institute. I understand you're looking at license plate reader machines, but also I think the entire commission would like to minimize the use of cash in the park, people collecting cash, so that we use machines strategically placed, and even if they have cash, it would go into the machine and not go through people's hands, except for the whoever, and possibly a company would pick up the cash and take to the bank. The other thing is, and I don't know if they make a machine like this, Rita, you would know, but if we could also have a machine that not only allows for parking, but also could possibly provide a ticket for beach admission, so that we do not have admission at the gates with cash, that perhaps it could spit out, you know, something that says, okay, parking, and you put in your information, and then, would you like a beach pass? And would give you a ticket that you could then take to the admission booth at the beach and not have to futz around. And obviously, I'm talking about daily parkers as opposed to permit parkers, which you could probably figure out how you would treat it differently with a, with a permit as opposed to cash.
Right. The permit holders, everything would be prepaid, so they're automatically in with the beach pass, with the permit, no fees, no hassling. Debbie and I have been working on automating the beach aspect of it and access to the beach. Right now in New York City, they're updating their Metro cards. They're actually phasing Metro cards out, and they're going to a app-based and a paper ticket booth. So we're looking at options, looking at possibly doing that. I can ask the vendor, the parking vendor, to see if they can incorporate the beach aspect of it. It gets a little complicated, but I know that they offer discounts and special receipts or tickets that you can access. I'm wondering if we can utilize that and do an all-in-one.
It's like the railroad, when you buy a railroad ticket, they ask you can get a subway ticket.
Yep.
Right,
You know,
so that's a good
something like
idea. I
that.
can ask the vendor.
So it again, and it's just an overall automation process to see if we can, reduce the amount of cash that changes hands.
Right.
I was shocked myself to find out how much cash was going through the parking booth. I figured a lot of it was credit card transactions. It's not. We're still like 80% is cash.
And how much?
right?
And how much money is that?
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
I
It was
know.
a
We had
lot.
about $900,000. We had about between beach.
$260,000
In cash.
Yeah,
in
we
cash.
just saw, I just jotted down from
Yeah.
our 2017 audit, the parking actual was $396,000.
But how much was cash?
That's not a,
Oh, I mean, sorry, but that's how much we're, if 80% is
80% of that was cash.
So
Yeah, that's.
I did an average over the last 5
So
years.
it's about $250,000.
Right, so I did an average of the last 5 years. I didn't take last year, so I blended it. So out of the last 5 years, it's about 325,000. And if you take 80% of that, you get the number 260. But obviously it goes up. So you're looking at a minimum of 260, probably more 300, 350 in that, just in cash. And only a small portion, 65, 70,000. And a lot of it is credit card and checks, but you see that on the back end. You see them buying permits, you see them do that. You're not seeing it after the beach season starts. You're not seeing it the day of the transactions, unfortunately.
All right. Thank you. Great report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Rita, and thank you to the entire
Again, a
committee.
work in
Very-
progress.
Yes. We have the management report. It's been submitted unless anybody has questions. I'd like to go on to that thank you letter from the Lawn Chair Theater we've received, thanking us for their allowing them to use the park, and I think this is a really great use of the park. And they go other places as well. Last year, they were at Crawford Park as well. It's a great organization, Lawn Chair Theater. Chamber of Commerce donation. This is,
both-
Debbie, you want to explain?
Both chambers of commerce, Chamber of Commerce of Rye and also Chamber of Commerce of Portchester and Rye Brook, have for many years asked for and received a single-family membership that they use for their annual fundraising. And that is what the request is, again, that we provide to each organization a gold family membership or platinum family membership that they will raffle off or use as a fundraiser.
No objection. A motion and a second, please.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, terrific. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.